guys, I'm Jamie Trull. I am a CPA, I'm also a profit strategist and a financial literacy coach. And lately, we have been talking all about the stimulus. So if you have not checked out my other videos, definitely make sure that you go check those out. We're talking about PPP, we're talking about economic injury disaster loans, we're talking about unemployment under pandemic unemployment assistance, we're talking about all the things, okay? So this specific video is going to be about PPP. And this one is just for you guys who are my self-employed people, my sole proprietors, and my independent contractors, those of you who do not have any employees, okay? So even if you're one of those, but you have employees, I want you to go see my other video, which will be linked down below, which actually will talk specifically about how you need to do this if you have W-2 employees, or if you did have W-2 employees at all in 2019 or 2020. But if not, you're in the right place. So keep watching this video. And I have some awesome resources I'm going to go over with you that you are going to love and are going to make this process so much easier. Okay? So just to recap, May 15th, the Treasury released a new application for PPP forgiveness. So this is kind of what we've been waiting for. We wanted to see exactly what it was going to look like. And it was a huge 11-page document. And I know for a lot of you guys, again, since you guys don't have employees, you probably opened this up and said, what in the world is this, right? So the great news for you guys, if you don't have employees, this is going to be so much easier for you. That said, there are still some tricky things that you want to watch out for, which is why I've created a resource just for you. So how do you get a hold of that resource? balancecfo.com/PPP tracker. It's up on the screen right now, okay? You're gonna go to that, you're gonna get that emailed to you, and it is going to save your life, okay? It is gonna make it so much easier for you to track forgiveness, to have everything the bank needs. It will actually fill out that application for you, okay? So we spent a ton of time building this, and I really am excited to show it to you. So I'm gonna jump right on into that right now so I can give you the quick tour of what you need to do as a self-employed person when looking at this tracker, okay? Okay, so we have jumped on over into the tracker, and I know there are a lot of words in here, and I know you guys are probably gonna open this up and say, oh my goodness, there are so many tabs, but take a breath. Very little of this is going to apply to you if you do not have employees, okay? So importantly, I want you to get familiar with what's in here, and you can read through this information, right? It talks about the purpose of the workbook. We have a little legal disclaimer, of course. We talk about the content, but down here you will see instructions for businesses without payroll for non-owner workers. That would be you, okay? You only have to do step 1. That is all. So all these other tabs are ones you are not going to have to do anything with, okay? So let's walk through that in a minute here. All right. So right now we are in the loan forgiveness application. So really importantly, throughout this entire application, you'll notice there are a couple of colors we use a lot. They are this kind of muted blue color, and there is a yellow color, and that yellow color should scream at you. And the reason that yellow color should scream at you is that means you need to do something. Okay, if you see the yellow color, likely you need to be inputting something into that cell. But you'll notice on this tab, okay, there is nothing for you to input. This tab is actually the forgiveness application. So this is if you go to treasury.gov and you grab that whole 11-page application, which by the way is also at the end of this workbook, you will find all of those forms. You will get this form, okay? And you'll notice, because everything is blue, this form automatically will populate based on what you put in the yellow tabs in this worksheet, okay? So there's nothing for you to do on here outside of come back at the end of this and just review it and make sure that it makes sense. But this is basically your application. It's gonna fill it out completely for you. So now jumping over to PPP Schedule A, which is another one of the required schedules that you have to turn in when you're asking for forgiveness. In this schedule, you'll see, again, it all fills out for you. So these two tabs are just things for you to review after you have filled out all the information on the other tabs and make sure that it looks appropriate. And these are the things that you would actually be turning in to the bank, okay? Okay, so let's jump on over to the one step that actually matters for you guys if you don't have employees, all right? You're just gonna have to go to Step 1, which is the loan tracker. So here we are. We're in the loan tracker. What's going on over here? So this tracker, again, remember, the yellow should scream at you. Okay, that means that there's an action for you to do. The user is to fill those in. So let's go through this real quick. Let's actually act like we're filling this out. So the amount of the loan received. Let's say, I'm just gonna say you're a sole proprietor. You got the max amount of the loan. So maybe you made $100,000 or over on your Schedule C net profit. And so we're gonna put in the total amount. So maybe you got the $2,833, which would have been the max amount of the loan you could have gotten. Okay, so date of cash received, okay? So let's put in, maybe we received it on the 5th of May, 2020. Okay, that's automatically gonna tell you when the end of your 8-week period is, okay? It's gonna fill in 56 days from when you got the cash. No, this isn't when you signed the loan, it's when that cash showed up into your bank account, when you received the money that very first day. That's the beginning. Now for you, you don't have to worry about this alternate covered payroll for period for payroll. You don't have payroll. So this is not something for you to worry about. This is only for employers. Now, let's talk about EIDL. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, good for you. You can skip the next 2 steps, okay? But if you got an economic injury disaster loan advance, or grant as it's sometimes called, that was the $1,000 per employee that you could have gotten, okay? If you applied for that and you got it, and this is only if you already have gotten it, then you would say, well, for this one, let's say you got it and it was not subtracted off of your PPP loan amount received. Now, in some limited cases, it was fairly rare, but in some limited cases, if you'd gotten your EIDL advance early, before you actually applied for PPP, they may have already subtracted that advance off of your PPP loan. So you'll want to know that. You'll want to take a look at your PPP loan and calculate it out and see, did they subtract that advance or not, okay? If that advance was already subtracted from your PPP, you're going to say yes. If not, which in most cases it won't have been, okay? They wouldn't automatically do this. You would have had to actually tell them, hey, I got the advance, and then they would have subtracted it. In most cases, the answer is going to be no, okay? And then for you, you have no employees, so the max you would have received would have been $1,000. So let's say you got that $1,000 advance amount. Okay, now let's talk about why this matters really quickly. The EIDL advance amount, and this is something that has had some confusion around it. If you got the advance, the grant, not the loan, the actual grant or advance, in most cases, it is yours to keep, except if you got PPP, okay? And the reason for that is PPP is already giving you free money, so they're not gonna let you have 2 sources of free money, even if you use them for different things. So for a little while, we thought maybe if you use them for different things, it would be okay. Nope. You are going to get that money subtracted off of your PPP forgiveness. That was called for in the CARES Act. All right, so we have to put that number in there. Even if you get full forgiveness on your PPP, they're still going to subtract that amount of EIDL advance. Okay, and I'll show you here in a minute how that's going to work. So let's say we got it and we put that in. All right, this is an important question for you as a non-employer. Did you have W-2 employees during any period in 2019 or 2020? The answer is no, right? Payroll period selected, covered period, alternate covered period. This doesn't matter for you either. You can put one in, you can just select covered if you want to, or you can leave it blank. That won't play into your calculation at all since you don't have actual payroll that you're running. Okay, so then we come down here and we choose, okay, was I a S Corp, partnership, sole proprietorship? Now, most of you guys, if you are independent contractors, self-employed, unless you have a partner, you probably would be in this category, the sole proprietor or LLC, non-corp, okay? If that is you, let's assume that it is, let's put in what your amounts were. So in this case, we're gonna put your 2019 Schedule C net profit, line 31, 100,000. That's the max you could have had. So if you had more than that, you'd have to max out at 100,000. So that calculates automatically what your owner pay is. So if you're curious how that's calculating it, what it is doing is taking your Schedule C net profit, maxed at 100,000, divided by 52, multiplied by 8, okay? Why? Because that's 8 weeks of payroll to you. So now some of you guys may have picked up on something here, which is the fact that when you do the math on this amount, the 8 weeks of owner pay, compared to your total loan received when you don't have employees, it comes out to 73.8% if you received the full amount of the loan you would be entitled to. So that would have been the 2.5 times payroll. It wouldn't come out to the 75%. That is okay. They have said that's fine for a sole proprietor, so don't worry too much about that. It ends up being, about $300 different, so it's really not that significant anyway. But just in case some of you guys, I know there was some confusion around, well, wait a second, that's not 75%, and am I supposed to use 75%? They've clarified that for sole proprietors, LLCs, you are supposed to use 8/52 of your 2019 Schedule C net profit. Okay, so just to clarify on that. Okay, so I skipped down here and you'll see that I went ahead and put in some information here. So let's say you had May and June rent that you paid, you had May and June electric, and you'll be able to just pick the type of expense that actually is something that you can use PPP for. So if it's an expense that you can't use PPP for, it does not go on this schedule, okay? So you will be able to pick one of these expenses that you're able to use PPP for. So I just put in some rent and utilities. There's a lot of questions right now still outstanding for self-employed people as to how does this work if you work out of a home office? Can you take a percentage of your internet? Can you take a percentage of your electric bill? And in general, it's still a little bit up in the air. So right now we don't know. We're waiting on Treasury to clarify. If they don't clarify specifically, it's probably going to be up to your bank, which means the better documentation that you have to show the personal business split, similar to what you would do for taxes. You have to be eligible to get a tax deduction for this to possibly even be able to count. But if you have really good records showing exactly how much you can deduct, and you've done the math behind it, and you can show how you took the deduction on your tax return previously, you have a better chance of being able to deduct a portion. But right now, there's still a little bit of a question around whether the banks are all going to accept something that's kind of a split business personal use and not fully business in nature, okay? So you could reach out to your bank as well and see if they have a perspective on it too. I think that's a smart thing to do while you're doing this. So we will put in all this information. Let's say this is all we had, okay? So this is going to be the information that's going to flow through on your non-payroll costs. So again, for you as a sole proprietor, you get to skip the vast majority. So you don't have to do step 2, step 3, or step 4. Lucky you, okay? You're going to come over here to the diagnostic tab though, and this is going to kind of summarize things for you. So here we are on the diagnostic sheet, and what you can really do on this diagnostic sheet is you can kind of ignore probably most of this because this is going to be more applicable to those who are employers, but you'll see some recommendations that you may have to increase your forgiveness, okay? So here it's telling you, look, you've got some extra money for non-payroll costs that you can use, and it'll tell you exactly what that is, right? And it'll give you some ideas for things you could do. So in this case, Treasury has actually said that it has to be paid or incurred, meaning that as long as you pay it for rent and utilities specifically, as long as you pay it during the 8 weeks, it will count. So potentially you might want to look at prepaying some rent for next month, let's say, that may be incurred outside of that 8-week period, but you could go ahead and pay it now. All right, so that might be something to do. So in this case, it's telling you, look, you have $1,378 left. So in that case, what I would do is say, okay, I'm going to come back over into step 1. I'm going to pay my, I'm going to pay my July, even though technically that won't come out until a couple of days after my covered period is over. I'm going to go ahead and pay July and try to get as much forgiveness for that as I can. So then you'll notice when you come back over here, there's no more recommendations. You have spent that non-payroll money, you're good to go, okay? So then you can come down here and look at some of the snapshot information this gives you. So it basically says, here's the amount you spent on payroll, here's the amount you spent on non-payroll, total amount spent versus the total amount of the loan, here's the amount that was unspent, and you can ignore this FTE calc because you don't have any full-time equivalent employees. And then you're going to come down to this forgiveness calc, okay? So for you, you're going to have your total amount, your total forgiveness that was calculated, and your EIDL advance adjustment. So this is where it's going to reduce that, right? So the 2512 minus the 1,000, that's what's going to get you to your 19,512 amount forgiven. And then the remaining is what becomes a loan. So it's basically your EIDL advance becomes a loan, right? Plus any amount you're not forgiven for your loan. Okay? Now, what is that extra $300? Some of you guys might have picked up on this. This is largely driven by the fact that your max payroll is 73.8% instead of that 75%. So I'm still curious to see if Treasury does anything on this. There's a chance that they would roll out a kind of streamlined application for sole proprietors that will fix this slight inconsistency and allow you to get forgiveness for the full amount. Because I really don't see banks being super interested in having a $300 2-year loan sitting on their books, okay? So I'm curious to see if that gets remedied. They may say, you know what, it's de minimis. We're gonna, kind of waive it if it's within a certain dollar amount. I can see them doing that as well. If you owe less than $500, less than $1,000, maybe they will just kind of waive the whole thing. Yet to be seen what they're gonna do in practice. But this will give you kind of a window into what would be unforgivable that you would then either have the option of going ahead and paying right away when you're applying for forgiveness and it comes out that yes, you have $1,300 that is not forgiven. You could either pay that right away and then not have a loan at all, which I do recommend, or you can say, you know what, I'm going to take that amount as a loan at 1% over 2 years. You would start payments 6 months from when you received the loan, okay? So that's pretty much it. And then this thing's going to basically tell you, whether you hit your max forgiveness. For a sole proprietor though, because of that weird little, 73.8%, you will never really be able to get it totally forgiven unless they update this application or make a special one for you guys. There's always going to be a small amount that you won't be able to get forgiven for, which seems like a strange loophole. So we're going to see if they do anything to change that. But this will basically tell you how you did. So ultimately, that's really how it works. And now you can jump back on over to that loan forgiveness application and the loan forgiveness application Schedule A. And you can review it. And this is literally the exact loan application you would fill out and hand over to your bank, okay? And your bank may want to see different types of support for this. Again, the support that they will definitely want is going to be in the back. For a sole proprietor, that's typically going to be your Schedule C from last year. That's going to be the main source, and then they're going to want to be able to see your support for rent payments, your support for utility payments, any payments that you are trying to get credit for with PPP. They're going to want to see support for that. And support may look like a lease agreement plus the actual payment. So maybe a bank statement showing the payment going out. It might be a utility bill, right? So things like that are what they're going to see. So again, today is May 26th, so that's important to note. And things are changing fairly frequently, so make sure that you're keeping up with it. Again, join us in Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners. We'd love to see you over there. It's a Facebook group. It's up on the screen right now, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.